All right, welcome to Insight tonight, and we are attempting to dissect this broad-based government that we've had, this new cabinet that was proposed by the President William Samoei Ruto. We want to understand exactly what are the underpinnings of this decision. We also want to understand exactly what this portends for our country, Kenya, and where it is that we want to go. And joining me tonight to help break this down is a team of experts of different insights and perspective. Right here to my right, we have Madam Wanjuhi Njoroge.
Yes.
Karibu sana. She is a youth consultant, youth and nature consultant, I should say. She also wears quite a few hats, matter of fact. Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me.
On the other side is engineer Victor Okuna, who also wears many hats. He is a governance and political analyst. Karibu sana. As well as being an engineer in renewable energy.
Yeah.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Folks, let's look at this thing. A few highlights. First of all, a few things have changed. Number one, not in any order of seniority or importance, but we have fewer women in this cabinet than before. We also have more technocrats than in the previous one. I think we're up to 5. Previously we had 2. We had Professor Ndongo and Madam Miano. We also have a new dimension, a new perspective. We have ODM inside the cabinet. Is it a throwback to somewhere in the 2000s? We will decide that. Another element is what that means for the party of ODM. Another interesting thing about this is that out of the 22 cabinet secretaries that were sent home, we've had about 12 of them come back. And I understand there's still one or two more positions to fill. We'll see about how that goes. But also many portfolios have remained unchanged. Nothing really has changed in that regard. I would like to get just your opening remarks. What were your impressions of this announcement when it came? Let's start with you, Victor. They say ladies first, but men before. Take it away. Quick as you can. What were your impressions?
Thanks, Vic. I think my impression on these appointments is that it was something that was done to bring down the effect of Gen Zs. There's nothing much, but because there was a political temperature rising up from Gen Z's demands, then I think President Ruto decided, let us now neutralize these Gen Zs by bringing these functions together so that their factions can deal with their Gen Zs and our functions can deal with our Gen Zs. Otherwise, I don't see much things to be done because they are the same people who have been relocated from one forest to another forest. All right.
What about you, Wanjuhi?
I think for me, first, it was utter shock and disappointment. I think the president had such a beautiful opportunity to clean up his cabinet and start afresh and convince Kenyans that he is ready to start afresh. He's actually committed to rebuilding the country, and I think we have such a beautiful opportunity to now move to the next level. And so to see him take it lightly, it was very, very disappointing. We are at a point where we've lost trust with government, we've lost trust with the executive, we've lost trust with the legislature. I would have expected him to at least make an effort to restore that trust. Looking at that cabinet, it has not met the 2/3 gender principle. It has not met, it only has one person below 32. It doesn't have any person with disability. You've talked about ODM, for instance. We have completely weakened and killed the opposition in the National Assembly, in the Senate, and some of the crucial counties like Mombasa and Nairobi. So I think for me, I'm a very worried person, seeing that he's taken lightly the opportunity that he was given by young people and other Kenyans across the country.
All right. So let's actually get into it. Engineer Okuna, you say that, in your opinion, you think he did this to counter or to neutralize the pressure from Gen Zs. Is it really accurate? Is it the right call? And I want you to jump into this when Joe here after he's done. Is it the right call? Because this is not what the Gen Zs were asking for. The Gen Zs wanted new faces. They wanted more technocrats, people with actual skill and training in the positions that were nominated for. This looks like it looks like a bit of a mismatch to the expectation. How do you think this will neutralize the Gen Z temperature?
First, Victor, I think Gen Zs did something that has taken us about 60 years plus to do, and they achieved it in less than 2 weeks. And to me, Gen Zs did something that rescued Kenyans from an oppressive government that was doing something we call DIY operation, surgery, on our pockets, actually is empty pockets. And the oppressors were trying to bring in some bills, like the finance bill, to further make sure that you and me give them more money to get more lavish life, so that tomorrow they are on the air. I know we've had the president and ministers who are ever on the roads, either on the road or flying. For the first time, we've seen almost in 1 month plus, there's no one who is going out on lavish lifestyle.
Actually, there's one tweet, you should call them, a guy called Alex Mwanzo on Twitter who said, have people actually imagined the amount of money that has been saved
exactly
in unnecessary travel? And
that is why I'm saying that Gen Z have saved us. These guys wanted to have some surgery, the last surgery on our pockets, so that little money you still own, as you, Victor, was going to be given in more taxes. And these taxes were not going to assist you anywhere. These taxes were just ensuring that we have more flights, we have more spending on things that are not really assisting you and me as Kenyans. So
Gen Z did that.
I really applaud Gen Zs that what they have done, it has taken Kenyans over 60 years and we've not achieved. And on doing that, we've lost a number of lives. And it will be very sad for me to be here to just appreciate what they did without me just acknowledging those who really perished. And actually we say, from my heart, I say I'm very sorry for the families and relatives who lost their loved ones because they were fighting for the rights of Kenyans. Wherever they are, may God give them that comfort. And I'm very sure one day, it may not be today or tomorrow, but one day somebody will be held responsible for these lives that were lost.
All right.
In the appointments of the cabinet, actually I can say that the president in our constitution has the rights to appoint anyone he wants. And the president also in the constitution has the authority to reappoint. There's no word called reappointment in our constitution. So if I appoint you today and then dismiss you tomorrow, I can still reappoint you because that dismissal can only be verified by the parliament. If the parliament has verified that you are not fit to hold any office, then the president cannot reappoint you. But if the president goes ahead and says that I've dismissed you, that is a political statement. So whatever the president said some 2 weeks ago on dissolving of the 20 cabinet secretaries, those were mere political statements that nobody, no Kenyan, somebody who has gone to school and really understand what the law says and the constitutions, those ones were mere and political statements that cannot be taken anywhere in the court of law. So what he's doing, he can't reorganize his cabinet, say a cabinet, he can reappoint anyone, but what he really needs to consider are these people I'm reappointing, are they technocrats? Do they have any graft cases? So that when we get to a new era, we start afresh. This was a time, actually it was a turning point for the president to ensure that he starts afresh and with the people who can move this country to another level.
Quick answer, yes or no. Do you think this turning point, did he seize it properly? Has he utilized this moment properly?
No.
All right. You'll tell us why.
Yeah.
Wanjuhi, he said, and quite a lot of people feel that way, that this was in a manner of neutralizing the pressure from the Gen Zs. First of all, is that an accurate description? Second, is it from his point of view, or at least from a political point of view, is that really a response that's likely to neutralize this? Are the Gen Zs neutralized?
Unfortunately not. First, we need to appreciate that this movement wasn't initiated by the opposition leader or the former opposition leader, Raila Amolo Odinga. This is Kenyans in majority being the Gen Z generation that initiated this movement. And so there is no way we can say that calling him to the table or having a handshake is going to neutralize. However, Kenyans are very disappointed. Personally, I'm very, very disappointed. I was very disappointed yesterday because I was hoping against hope that Raila, somebody who has fought for multi-party democracy, who suffered police brutality, whose family has been turned upside down when fighting for multi-party democracy, would actually stand with Kenyans. So majority of us are actually heartbroken. Those of us who followed him and respected and admired him are actually disappointed. But I promise you that this is not the end of it. What this coming together, and we are calling it the unity of a political class or unity of greed, has done is increase our anger. Because the president had an option of doing the right thing, operating within the confines of the Constitution, but he chose to, most importantly, weaken the Constitution, weaken the opposition. Now, any bill they want to pass, and a good example is what happened in Parliament today. They defunded something like blood transfusion for 200 million and approved the First Lady and the Second Lady's funding. These are unconstitutional offices. So that tells you there is no separation of power as enshrined in our Constitution. So we don't have a parliament. There is no clear separation of power between the executive and the legislature. These two are together. It means any bill they want to pass, they will pass. What stops them from passing the next finance bill that is tabled by quote-unquote ODM? So this has angered us more, but remember, we've had success. The finance bill, we went to the streets and we had the first liberation on the 25th of June, exactly a month ago. And that has proven to us that when we come together and unite as Kenyans, anything is possible. And so it is the people versus the ruling class or the political class. And I doubt there is a better moment to be alive and to be Kenyan than this.
No.
So, of course, the spirits may be down, but tunalamba glucose. Na tunaendelea.
Narudi Wanjani.
I can say on something before you proceed on the neutralization. Actually, it's not that they have neutralized, it's not that they were attempting to neutralize. No, they were thinking that when I do this and I do this, I can counter what these Gen Zs are doing. But what I can assure you, Victor, Gen Zs have put up a force that we can be equivalent to almost a 16-cylinder turbocharged engine. That force that thrust them towards inside the parliament. And that force, I can assure you today, can do anything. So whether ODM or any other party march with the government of the day, if they are not going to be accountable, if they are not going to do what the Gen Zs are doing, because I'm also a millennium, then I will still call the Gen Zs and the millennium. Let us come out, all of us, and ensure that there is accountability. Me, I was there on June. I was in the parliament.
You're inside?
Yeah, no, I was not inside. But I was at the street. I also went out to exercise my right.
Who suspiciously looks like you. Let me ask a question. We captured on CCTV. Let me ask you a question on a point that both of you have actually made. We have ODM members, key figures, very vocal, very, you'd argue, very anti-Kenya Kwanza people, previously, their stances, showing up on the list of nominees. And get this, immediately after the nomination, they all equally sent their messages thanking the president for the nomination and accepting the nominations. Here's a question. Is the president actually weakening the opposition? Or is it a case of willing buyer and willing seller?
It is both. It is a case of willing seller, willing buyer, because I think it was John Mbadi who went and in a political rally over the weekend, he said that he would be a minister had they won the last election. So this probably was an aspiration of his. And so when this was offered to him, he took it and grabbed it with both hands. But I also think that politically, the president is being very, very calculative. in that he's looking at 2027. Remember now, this Gen Z movement, all those who are unregistered voters will come out in large numbers to register to vote and want to vote this government out. So imagine a combination of Gen Zs and millennials and all the other generations that are very tired of the previous ruling class, including the current administration. So I think the president is planning ahead and preparing for 2027, in that if he brings together, let's say, the Nyanza region, the Luo Nyanza region, the Western Bloc, and bring them together, he's convinced that they can still win. But it's quite unfortunate, given that this is a new Kenya, and what happened in the month of June has proven to us that the Kenya we desire is within reach. But I'm also trying to encourage all the people, all generations that are tired of this ruling class, that at times, you know, there's a Bible saying that says that it will be easier for the camel to enter in the hole of the needle than some people, some sinners. Similarly, where we are going next, I would say that God is trying to, for those of us who are believers, is trying to separate the people who will be part of the next level. Like Moses was told, that is the promised land. You will see it, but you will not get there. There are those who will see it, but they will not get there. And it's important for us to separate. And we must thank the Gen Z and everybody who has participated in this movement, because they have exposed certain leaders like Raila Amolo Odinga. We are heartbroken right now, but we appreciate, we are grateful that this has happened, because he's not a reliable person. We've now come to appreciate that he's not somebody we can count on. All those leaders, I mean, someone like John Mbadi, I remember during the vetting of the members, the ministers who've been fired, right. I remember him saying that he has, the president, you know, and now he's joined that particular group of people. You know, so, but we now know that he will choose his personal interest, his selfish personal interest over the common good. Because can you imagine if the opposition remained in opposition? It's unfortunate that we have leaders who take our constitution very, very lightly, because the role of oversight, the role of opposition, they drive GK vehicles. And I think it's time that they return those vehicles back to government, because they are now part of government.
Okay, Victor, just as you're coming in, what message does it send when the chairman of the biggest opposition party, the biggest party in the opposition coalition, actually accepts a nomination into the government that he's supposed to oppose, like what you're saying? You have the minority whip as well. You have one of the major principles in Azimio in form of Mr. Oparanya. You have all these. You have former Governor Joho and so on. What message? What's a game here? What's the objective here?
Victor, I want to say that political parties are run by ideologies. That is what really makes a political party. ODA, which is the ruling party, is run with an ideology of bottom-up. That is what made ODA. ODM has its own ideologies. During the campaigns, the ODM first say that the bottom-up economy isn't sustainable, and it is something that cannot work. So when they have their own ideologies, and then this is another party of a totally different ideologies, and then they merge together without any framework that has been put in place, then I'm telling you that these are just people with their own egos joining hands to loot more. If these guys wanted to form a government, then they could have maybe had a month and have a session of paper to describe exactly what they want to do. Because this is a chairman of a party, of ODM, that has their own ideologies. Then you are coming in to join the order that has their own ideologies. These people will not, they will always have some rough terrains. Actually,
let's talk about that. I thank you for bringing that up. There are very divergent views on how to deal with Kenya, yes. As witnessed in the campaigns, what you're saying, the ideologies. How do you envision, now that this has happened, now that, assuming Honorable Mbadi and the rest are actually vetted and approved, and then they're actually appointed and sworn in, talk to me about how this cabinet will get along, first of all, with such divergent political ideologies and divergent aims and views. How do you envision that working out?
No, I don't see any smooth ride here. I can assure you, I've just told you that these are people who have come together to continue looting. Where there's something to loot, they'll come together. But now where there's policy to be administered, then they're now starting pulling apart. So it's going to be a rough ride, and until such a time that now we'll come and say that this is the country we need, and now we want to do 1, 2, 3. Of which even the first thing that maybe a policy that can be done is on the issue of water. We have a lot of problems with the water in this country. We have a mess in the energy. So before we appoint anyone from another party, then we could have had a national dialogue and say that these are the problems that is ailing us at the moment. If it is accountability of 1, 2, 3 as you, Victor, then we identify that the problem that is affecting us today is accountability. So we first of all ensure that we sit down and say that these are the key issues that is affecting us. And you see, the issue that affects us has no boundary. It can't be sorted out with any party. So then they come together, they merge together and say that these are the issues we're going to work on. But when a political party is from this one and merges with this one because of appointment, without any clear intention, without any direction, and then you hear that there's a division, then I tell you that these people who have been nominated, they have no goodwill for Kenyans, but they have their own self-interest, of which their self-interest is to make money and to make a kill, and Kenya goes on.
I think there's a part I disagree. The political parties in Kenya claim to have ideologies, but in reality, those political parties are formed because of personal interests. The ODM party, we know the person who is behind the ODM party. When it comes to UDA, we know the person who is behind UDA. And that has been the case for a very, very long time. And then when you look at our coalitions, we form coalitions to win elections, not because of people's interests and people's ideology. And that is where I'm saying, I think them coming together is a good thing. We may feel hurt and betrayed and all, but it's a good thing. They needed to come together so that we realize we are on our own, and we now start thinking about the next election. Are we ready for it? I already said that we need to start registering for the next election, anyone who is above 18 years, and today the court has suspended the issuance of Maisha card, which is a good thing. Now we are reverting back to the old ID cards until the court can pronounce itself. So the next thing that we must ask ourselves is who are our leaders, and what political vehicles are we going to use? What political parties are we going to form? And I believe the political party that we form is a political party that is informed by ideologies, that is informed by the well-being of the people, because we have that opportunity and we have time to prepare, we have time to mobilize across the country. There are people who have already volunteered. The same way we have united and done civic education on many bills, not just the finance bill. It's the same way we are going to mobilize people to register for this particular political party. But we have an opportunity to now start afresh. We will have to work with other people who've gone ahead of us, and of course there are people who have very, very clean records, and we must also remember that there is no perfect person, there is no perfect leader, just as there is no perfect person. But I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Let them come together, and they're going to mess up. The first fight they're going to have is internal fights. Between the leadership of Kenya Kwanza, the leadership of ODM and the other party, Azimio, say they'll start fighting amongst themselves. And once you see your enemy trying to hang themselves, please get them the strongest rope so that they can quickly do what they want to do. But I think we must, as Kenyans of all generations who want to see a better Kenya, must come together now and start asking ourselves, even as we continue putting pressure, even as we remain vigilant, because we are now the official opposition party of this country, even as we remain vigilant, how are we preparing ourselves? Because the next thing that we must occupy is Huduma Center, is Nyayo House for our IDs, for instance.
There's a point that came from somebody who was on social media, and he said that it looks like there's an us versus them mentality, with the us being the Gen Zs, and then the movement that is all about accountability and so on and so on, and them meaning anyone who doesn't support that, anyone who appears to hold any sort of support or sympathy or alignment or alliance with the ruling coalition. Right now, it's essentially a coalition. Here's a question. What happens to the people who still, at this point, still support this government? The people who were clapping when Honorable Mbadi, when Honorable Wandai, or when Honorable Oparanya, when Honorable Joho, when Honorable Tuya, when Honorable Duale, when Honorable Murkomen, you name it, when they were announced as nominees, those people who were celebrating, those guys, the guys who still believe, the president was out today in Tharaka Nithi and in Mombasa, those guys who came out, those guys who cheered, those guys who appeared to still support this government. What happens to them? What about them? Where does all this leave them?
I think personally I will say we are all Kenyans. And they are late bloomers. There are people who convert immediately, and there are those who take time. And it's important to appreciate that we are coming from somewhere, and we have not even left where we have been. Remember, our politics for the longest time have been influenced by Mtuwetu politics. So when somebody from my village is elected, is appointed to serve in the cabinet, that is our person, you know. For the longest time, that has been the order of the day. And so when, say, John Mbadi is appointed, when Tuya is appointed, when all these people are appointed, their people celebrate. But I think with time, this will change, because we'll pause and ask, we'll get to a point, like now coffee is suffering. I come from a coffee growing area. We have all these leaders. How are they benefiting us? You know, for the longest time, we have gone, we've formed coalitions based on the votes that I'm bringing. So I come from the Mount Kenya region. I will come and say that I have brought the Mount Kenya vote. I have come with the entire basket. What am I getting? But you're not talking about the entire region. You're actually talking about yourself. So we will constantly have these conversations, and I'm also pleading with the media, particularly vernacular media stations, that let us allow ourselves to have these very uncomfortable conversations, real conversations, and say we have 7 members, we have 7 cabinet secretaries, for instance, from Mount Kenya region. How have we benefited from having this cabinet secretary? So it goes beyond just having cabinet secretaries, you know, coming from your region. It is what are they doing, not just for your region, but for the entire Kenya. You have these members of parliament elected into parliament. You have these MCAs elected into the county assembly. You have this governor elected as the governor of your county, but how have you benefited from this governor? So this mentality will take time. It's not something, it's not like a switch where you switch on and switch off. They are still Kenyans. They are relatives, they are parents, they are our siblings, they are our cousins, they are, you know. So these are all part of. And then remember, poverty is a very big factor, contributing factor. Maybe those people who came out were given 200 shillings. 200 shillings is a packet of unga for someone. So they'll think, why not? I'm going to clap and then I get a packet of unga. Remember, this handout mentality has also influenced our voting outcome. The night of elections, the agents don't sleep. You have your section, you go and take unga to influence tomorrow's voting. So a lot of things will take time, but that we are making progress is still impressive, and we must celebrate that in itself.
Right.
I think, Victor, politics in Kenya has been marred by tribal cocoons. That is what is really ailing us. So when you see President Ruto going to Meru today, he went there with Professor Kindiki, and what he said to the locals, look, this is your person. So that is the kind of tribal politics that is just undermining any kind of development that we're going to have. Because the moment you come and present to us that now, look, this is your person, what the president is telling the locals is that you need to give him support because he has appointed your person from your region. So whether that person is not going to perform, that is none of his business. And that is exactly what has made Kenya to be where it is. We do not want to have people in selected that have given your people or your community someone or how many posts. We need a country where those who are appointed, those who are elected, are accountable to the people they are serving. When we do that, the president will not come to our place and tell me, look, I've given you 1, 2, 3 people to serve. No, they'll come and say, the people we appointed have done 1, 2, and 3. Those 2 things are very different. When I come to your community and tell you, look, I've appointed Peter, and Peter comes from your community. But next time, when I come to you and tell you, I appointed Peter and he has brought you roads, I appointed Peter and he has brought you water, I appointed Peter and he has brought you this and this. So let us not see what the president brings to you in terms of appointment, but let us see the work that is done on the ground through the people that the president has appointed.
All right. So starting with you, Victor, talk to me about when you look at this cabinet, is there an opportunity that you can see for Kenya? Is there a chance for any positive thing to come out of this cabinet for Kenya, from the way it looks, from the people that are in there? Are you expecting anything out of them? And if so, what?
I've tried to analyze each and individual person forming the 19 people that were appointed. I've tried to look at this engineer was appointed in water. Definitely he's not been a public figure, but he might perform. What might undermine him are now the junior peers. You know, this country also has problem with the peers. You can have your CS, but when the president has appointed another PS that will undermine his boss, then that PS now becomes just a face to be seen, but with no action at all. So we want to just ask the president, if he has appointed a CS, let him be in charge of that docket. What I saw last time in the education ministry, that even the opening day, communication had to be waited from the State House. That is not something that we as Kenyans are waiting to see. If somebody has been appointed as the CS for education, let him handle the education from the ground all the way to where he is, just like the Uhuru government was. You as the president, you now have to have weekly meeting or monthly meeting to get the reports, and from the reports you can now come up with policies that can now make governance of the country become possible. But the moment you as the president, you want to run everything, I can tell you that we are going to still have mess. And when we have mess, I'm calling upon all the Gen Zs and millennials and anyone else, let us come up and rescue our country. There's no one else who will do it for us. But me and you, when we come up and tell President that, look, Ruto, this is what we want, then that is the way to go. So we may not really...
Please proceed.
We may not really expect much, but because they have fresh blood that have been injected into this, there are new energies, and maybe as the president, he has seen something, let us give him time. If it is few days or few months or a year, let us see if there will be a chance for improvement, and if there's no improvement, let us get Ruto with the roots from where he is.
All right. Wanjuhi, what's your parting shot?
First and foremost, this cabinet should not pass parliament. But then we don't have a parliament that will play its oversight role. So the most possible outcome is that it will pass through parliament. But I'm managing my expectations. I don't see, today the president is already back on top of vehicles. He's launching projects that ought to be launched by cabinet secretaries and permanent secretaries and governors, and really not the president, because the president at this point, we are talking about an economic crisis. We're talking about trouble now funding this year's budget, given that he has no finance bill. Mm-hmm. So he ought to be working, but he's already preparing for 2027. So I am not expecting anything from this administration. There are some very, very good people, even who are PSs, who serve as PSs. I don't know about cabinet secretaries. I don't want to even talk about the opposition, because in itself they have already killed opposition, and these are members of these are people who ought to be in parliament playing their role as opposition leaders. And so I'm managing my expectations, because I don't see the commitment from the president, and we see the fish rots from the head.
Right. Well, this conversation is a very big conversation, definitely much bigger than the time we have. But I'd like to believe there's been some insight served on this table tonight. And so I appreciate you, Wanjuhi, and I appreciate you, Victor, for coming in tonight and sharing your insight and your views on this very, very big matter. We shall have you back on other conversations in the future, because this is something that's going to be with us for a while. Thank you so much for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, the questions were ours, the answers are yours. We hope that on Insight tonight you've gained a thing or two about the runnings of our country that we all love and we all live in. There's no spare country, it's Kenya. Better put our best feet forward to make sure that this country still remains after this. My name is Victor Muyakane. We've been joined by Wanjuhi Njoroge and Victor Okuna, engineer. We want to say good night and God bless you. Up next is VAR, your weekly dose of turbocharged sporting action.